In space, the Explorer STS-157 shuttle is orbiting Earth. We meet astronaut Matt Kowalski, the shuttle's pilot, who is conducting an external inspection. It's his last day on the job, so he feels relieved. The Explorer shuttle is responsible for transporting astronauts to perform maintenance on the Hubble telescope. One of the astronauts is Dr. Ryan Stone, who is fixing a problem with the data transmission card because the base on Earth is not receiving the necessary information. She diagnoses the problem with the communication panel and says it will take an hour to fix. Kowalski offers to help her. At one point, Mission Control alerts them about a Russian satellite hit by a missile, causing a cloud of debris traveling at 32,000 km per hour. Fortunately, the debris trajectory does not coincide with their route, so they joke around while Dr. Stone and Kowalski admire the Earth's beauty from space. Moments later, while Dr. Stone is replacing the damaged panel, Kowalski starts telling a story but is soon interrupted by the base, which instructs them to abort the mission and disconnect Explorer from Hubble, urgently evacuating the area. The debris collided with other satellites, causing a chain reaction, and the new debris is heading their way. Kowalski tells Stone to abort, but she wants to finish since she only needs a few more seconds. Kowalski gives a direct order, and she complies. He then asks Command to disconnect the telescope, but it's too late. Dr. Stone sees the debris heading towards them. Nervous and scared, she gets stuck in Explorer's robotic arm. Kowalski goes to help her, and at that moment, one of the astronauts is hit. Kowalski decides to help the astronaut, leaving Stone alone. The debris arrives in large scale, hitting the Explorer shuttle and causing it to spin. Dr. Stone, still trapped, spins with it until the robotic arm is destroyed, leaving her adrift with the debris. Kowalski tells her to try to break free before the arm drags her too far away, making rescue impossible. Nervous, she starts to run out of breath. Kowalski warns her that he will lose sight of her if she doesn't break free soon. After a tense moment, she manages to free herself but is already quite far away, and Kowalski loses sight of her. Now she drifts in space, subjected to the lack of gravity. Kowalski contacts her and asks for her position, but she is spinning too rapidly to orient herself. After tense moments where panicking doesn't help much, she starts breathing calmly again and tries to focus on finding a reference point. She sees Kowalski's shuttle at her 12 o'clock position and the International Space Station at her 7 o'clock. Stone notes that her oxygen is at 10% and will soon run out. She tries to contact Explorer, but there is no response, likely due to the debris destroying much of the equipment, causing communication failure and leaving her lost in space. Moments later, still alone, Kowalski contacts her again and asks her to flash her light so he can see her. He carefully observes and manages to find her, then tells her to hold on. Stone says she's okay, but her oxygen is now only at 8% due to her earlier panic. Kowalski tells Stone to relax and soon approaches, managing to grab her and then connect the tether to her waist. He uses the suit's thruster and heads toward the space shuttle. He contacts Mission Control and asks them to prepare their entry into the Explorer, but no one responds. Realizing this might take a while, he sets his watch for an hour and a half, the time it will take for the debris to complete another orbit and reach them again, now traveling at 80,000 kilometers per hour. Kowalski decides to retrieve the other astronaut's body, and Stone manages to grab it. She sees the terrible damage to his face, realizing he unfortunately died from the impact, which terrifies her about what could happen to them if they don't get out of there in time. They soon return to the Explorer, and upon arrival, they realize the significant loss. Sadly, everyone inside has died. Seeing that they are the only survivors, Kowalski tells Stone that they need to reach the International Space Station and use the Soyuz escape module to return to Earth. Determined to try and get back home, they set off. While they drift in space and Dr. Stone has only 2% oxygen left, Kowalski tries to ease the tense moment by asking her a bit about her life. Stone responds that she lives in Illinois but, being low on oxygen and scared, takes a while to answer his other questions. Kowalski, with many years of experience, continues talking to her to keep her calm. She then says she is slowing him down, but he keeps the conversation going and asks if there's anyone down on Earth looking up and thinking about her. Saddened, she mentions she had a daughter who died at 4 years old after a fall at school resulted in a fatal head injury. After telling this sad story, she says her oxygen is running out, but Kowalski quickly reassures her that they are only 5 minutes away from the station. However, she sees that her oxygen will run out before they can get there, so he reminds her to use the reserve oxygen tank in her suit, which she will have to suck in rather than breathe normally. Approaching the station, Kowalski notices that one of the escape capsules has already been used and the other has its parachute deployed, preventing them from re-entering Earth. Kowalski waits a bit to align himself properly with the station to use his thruster, as he only has one burst left, and cannot afford to miss. He prepares and activates it in the right direction, but now they approach rapidly without a way to brake, as the thruster is out of fuel. They face the challenge of grabbing onto anything they can to avoid drifting into space. Stone manages to grab hold of something, but Kowalski, out of control, crashes into her, causing her to lose her grip due to the impact. They end up with the tether snagged on the station's solar panels, separating them again, with Stone drifting away. Fortunately, the parachute cords are nearby and get tangled around her leg, saving her for the moment. Kowalski, also in trouble after failing to grab onto the station, tells Stone to grab his hand, and failing that, the tether that connected them earlier. However, realizing the immense strain on the parachute cords, he tells her to let him go. Despite her hope of pulling him in, she refuses to let go, but he insists that they will both die if she doesn't. Kowalski, seeing she won't release him, lets go himself, giving her a chance to survive, and he drifts away into the vastness of space while Stone mourns. Without a clear destination, completely adrift in space, Kowalski helps guide Stone into the station through the decompression module, telling her to be quick as she is becoming dizzy from inhaling carbon dioxide. He tells her to take the damaged Soyuz and then shows her the Chinese space station, which she must reach and use the Shenzhou escape capsule to re-enter Earth. He encourages her, saying that the next day she will be on Earth with many stories to tell. Stone says she will get the probe to come back for him, but he tells her it's impossible as he is too far away and urges her to survive. Kowalski bids her farewell, and we see that she is nearly unconscious. Stone struggles a bit more and manages to open the capsule, immediately activating the oxygen, which fills the entire space. With her last breaths, she removes her helmet and starts breathing normally again. Relieved, she then takes off her entire suit and checks the station. Going to the communication area, she tries to contact Kowalski, but he no longer responds. She insists on talking to him and looks outside to try to see him, but she can't find him anywhere, as he is probably far away and out of oxygen. Stone, knowing she won't be heard, reports to Mission Control that she lost Commander Matt Kowalski, and that she is the sole survivor. Still saddened by the situation, she faces another challenge as some compartments of the station catch fire. She quickly goes there and tries to use the fire extinguisher, but due to this, she experiences a repulsion force that pushes her violently backward, causing her to hit her head and pass out. She quickly wakes up and is almost hit by an exploding oxygen tank nearby. Stone manages to leave that compartment and enter the capsule before the fire reaches her. After closing it, she goes to the seat and reads the instructions for handling the escape module, managing to decouple it. With only 7 minutes left before the debris returns to her location, she starts maneuvering the Soyuz, not realizing that the parachute is still attached and pulling her towards the station. She narrowly avoids a collision and stabilizes the still attached craft so it floats normally. Stone then decides to go out and try to release the cords. Outside, she looks around to see if there is any danger approaching, and with a bit of time left, she begins to free the tethered part of the craft. Nearly finished, she retrieves her equipment and notices thousands of debris pieces heading her way, already hitting the station. Despite her concern, she continues to disconnect the damaged part, not realizing the debris is already destroying the entire station. She is soon surprised, and her craft loses stability. Among the large compartments, she sees them being destroyed and panics, trying to hold on and hoping not to be hit. Stone loses her equipment and almost gets hurt when her craft collides with one of the station's solar panels. Relieved after witnessing everything being smashed by the debris, she returns inside the craft and sets her watch for another hour and 30 minutes, the time it will take for the debris to pass by again. Stabilizing the craft, she targets the Chinese station, now her destination where she hopes to find salvation. However, when she activates the propulsion, she realizes it's not working, which is a problem because the craft's speed means it will take a long time to reach the station, if it ever does. Stone checks the problem and discovers a malfunction indicating there was fuel for propulsion, but when she touches the equipment, she realizes there is none, leaving her distraught. She tries to inform the ground command, saying she is adrift and out of fuel, but there is still no communication. After some time trying, with the craft starting to cool down, she manages to enter a radio frequency but soon realizes it's from Earth, not the Chinese station. Stone, almost losing hope and very sad, began to howl along with the sounds of dogs coming from Earth through the radio frequency. She then heard the voice of a baby and a lullaby, which calmed her down. Believing she was going to die, she released the oxygen reserve, which quickly started to drop. Once it was depleted, carbon dioxide would take over, causing her to pass out. Already drowsy, Stone was surprised by someone knocking on the window outside, and we soon saw it was Kowalski. But it quickly became apparent that it was just her hallucination, as he opened the capsule door and nothing happened to them. He entered and adjusted the oxygen, happy to see her and that she had survived. Stone immediately asked how he managed it, and the imaginary Kowalski replied that he discovered he still had a bit of battery left, allowing him to return. He then said they would go to the Chinese station, which was getting further away. Stone mentioned they didn't have fuel to propel them, but he said there's always a way, talking about the landing jets, which would be their propulsion. He told her it was time to go home. Still with little hope, she began to doubt what was happening and how Kowalski really got there, but he continued to motivate her to get out of that situation. Drowsy again, she looked to the side and realized it was just an illusion of her mind, with no Kowalski there and truly no one else inside but her. Stone then got motivated again, adjusted the oxygen, took the landing orientation guide, and started reading the instructions. She began the procedure, soon detaching the unnecessary components for the landing. The problem was that the jets would only activate when they were 3 meters from the ground, so she looked for a way to override the system configuration and found it. While configuring it, she said goodbye to Kowalski, asking him to tell her daughter, Sarah, that she loved her very much and wouldn't give up on life. Convicted, Stone managed to activate the thrusters and headed towards the Chinese station. Approaching it, she realized it was off course and already entering Earth's atmosphere. With an idea, she grabbed the fire extinguisher. As she didn't have a special suit with thrusters to propel her, she would use the extinguisher for that. Leaving the craft and still adrift, she started using the extinguisher to stabilize herself and then moved towards the station. Upon arrival, Stone saw it was damaged and falling. She used the extinguisher one last time and barely managed to grab hold of it, now facing the challenge of getting to the entry hatch before the debris hit her. Stone got inside and quickly made her way to the escape capsule while the station was being hit, knowing it wouldn't last long. Reaching the control panel of the capsule, she couldn't understand anything since it was all in Chinese, but using the color and position of the buttons, which always followed the same pattern, she managed to power it up and start the decoupling process, which would take 1 minute. But before that, since they were already re-entering the atmosphere, the decoupling was forced, and the capsule went out of control. Stone could do nothing but hope the capsule wouldn't burn up completely. She managed to detach the unnecessary parts for the landing and continued to fall with the station's debris. Inside the capsule, all the equipment began short-circuiting, and Stone, worried, just awaited re-entry. Meanwhile, the smaller debris following her evaporated, sparing the capsule from major damage. Once within Earth's atmosphere, she deployed the parachute, but due to internal damage, the equipment short-circuited and caught fire. Stone panicked, but just in time, the capsule fell into the sea. She quickly opened the hatch but struggled to get out as the capsule started sinking. In that tense and worrying moment, she managed to get out, but the weight of her suit prevented her from surfacing. Desperately, she removed the suit and only then could she swim to the surface. She surfaced and saw the rest of the station falling, realizing she had lost her friends and colleagues to this great tragedy. The film ends showing Stone reaching solid ground, relieved by everything she went through in space and having survived, just as she promised her friend.